So desperate not to call it a war that one conservative newscaster is arguing with his own graphics package.
All right, war with Iran? Maybe it's war in Iran.
A Daily Show host beautifully roasted Trump and his allies and pointed out a hilarious yet disturbing pattern with his bizarre attempts to insist that bombing the fuck out of another country and overseeing regime change, all without congressional approval, of course, is actually not a war. Meanwhile, some disturbing new evidence has come to light, which reveals why Trump dragged us into this totally not a war. So stick around until the end because I'm going to break down why the US and Israel attacked Iran and why the Trump administration is lying through their nasty, stinky faces about it. Before we jump in, here's the deal. If I make you laugh even one time, you subscribe. It's how I made friends at school, and it's how I'll make friends on YouTube too. Daily Show host Michael Costa makes a brilliant point about the ludicrous attempts MAGA have made at doing war in yet another Middle Eastern country as being, just not war somehow. Check it out.
And the most upsetting thing about this is that it's all happening under a president who promised that this wasn't going to happen.
I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. No new wars. We don't need the wars. My personality is going to keep us out of wars. I am the candidate of peace. I am peace.
In Trump's defense, I'm pretty sure he was saying pissed then. He's like, I am the candidate of piss. I've been pissed on by many Russian prostitutes.
You have to admit he's gone back on his promise by starting a new war.
This isn't a war. We haven't declared war on Iran.
I don't know if this is technically a war.
Strategic strikes are not war.
Nobody should classify this as war. It is combat operations.
Where else have I recently heard such a pathetic attempt to not call a war a war?
Russian forces began hitting targets in Ukraine overnight. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced what he called a special military operation. He refused to call it a war.
We don't need Trump copying more shit Putin does. It's a slippery slope that could lead to the worst possible scenario, Trump going shirtless.
What's that saying? Lead by example. And Donald Trump is leading by the example set to him by his absolute best pal in the whole world, Vladimir Putin.
So desperate not to call it a war, one conservative newscaster is arguing with his own graphics package.
All right, war with Iran? Maybe it's war in Iran.
War from Iran?
They can't even agree on the messaging about this totally not a war. Just in general, it's staggering how incompetent this administration is. The way they've handled evacuating citizens from the area genuinely boggles belief.
It's definitely not expanding into an ever-widening regional conflict that puts Americans in immediate danger.
Overnight, the State Department issuing its strongest warning yet, urging U.S. nationals to depart.
State Department advising Americans to evacuate from 14 countries, covering most of the Middle East.
U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, help us out. Tell the stranded Americans how to get home.
The Israeli Ministry of Tourism is providing bus service from several locations.
I'm sorry, you want us to take a bus out of a war zone?
I like this guy, but I wish he would stop calling it a war zone. It's a special operations zone, a strategic strike zone, a cheeky regime change zone. MAGA seems to be taking their conflict logic from Bill, I smoked but I did not inhale Clinton, or Donald, it's not assault because I didn't come Trump. Some of these people, like Rubio, are so bad at lying they couldn't even keep their story straight within a 24-hour time span.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get...
Yeah, your statement is false. So that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked
okay.
a question.
No, were you the one that... Because somebody asked me a question yesterday. Did we go in because of Israel? And I said, you were asking me that follow-up. And I said, no. I told you this had to happen anyway. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed.
What's really crazy about this is it's like almost the same logic as being in a bar with your mate and being like, I knew my mate was about to go and punch that bartender in the face for no reason. And I knew the bartender was going to get mad and punch back. So I had to shoot him. What other possible option was there? And finally, the truth about why they started this backyard shooty fun time mission has started to actually come out. As Axios reports, this is the Trump-Netanyahu call that changed the Middle East once again. So basically, last Monday, Benjamin Netanyahu called President Trump with a stunning tip. Iran's supreme leader and his top advisors were all set to meet at one location in Tehran on Saturday morning. They could all be killed in a single devastating airstrike, Netanyahu told Trump and his team, according to 3 sources briefed on the discussion. Oh, also not Not really about self-defense, self-preservation, or anything preemptive. Literally just, we can save money on a couple of missiles here. Crazy. As it answers the question that lawmakers, market skeptics, and world leaders have all been asking since Saturday. Why now? The answer, because they had an unmissable chance to take out many birds with one stone, so to speak. Apparently, the 23rd February call was part of months of intensive coordination between Netanyahu and Trump, who met twice and spoke by phone 15 times in the 2 months leading to the war, according to the US and Israeli officials. Nice. That must be some of that America First I'm hearing about. The US and Israel had considered striking a week earlier on Saturday, but postponed for intelligence and operational reasons, including bad weather. It's something so weirdly British about that. It's like a British barbecue. Oh, bad weather. Let's put this not a war off. So CIA confirmed this information, and on the same day, Trump's envoys Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff called from Geneva after hours of talks with Iranian officials and delivered a blunt verdict. Negotiations were going nowhere. If you decide you want to do diplomacy, obviously that's a big ask for Trump, we will push and fight to get a deal. But these guys showed us they weren't willing to make the deal you'll be satisfied with. US official with direct knowledge of the call said Trump was told. So blow him up, obviously. Let's not forget here, the wider context of all this is that the US and Iran had a solid deal, a no-nuclearization deal for Iran made by Barack Obama, which was being upheld as far as I'm aware, and that Trump removed us from. And now their nuclearization is the reason to start bombing them again. It's like, make it make sense. It's all such corrupt bullshit. There's some really interesting nuggets in his article, like this one, for example. Said Trump wanted to strike early in early January. It was Bibi who asked a delay, which is interesting because, Trump will never admit that he is under Bibi's thumb. The timing was fully coordinated with the understanding it will be carried out jointly. The original plan called for a strike in late March or early April. Netanyahu pushed to move faster. US officials said Netanyahu began agitating and warning that Iranian opposition leaders sheltering in safe houses were in danger of being killed by the current regime. So the accelerated timeline left the administration flat-footed, which is the Trump administration flat-footed and limp-dicked. Crazy. Rather than spending weeks building the public case for it, the White House found itself justifying the strikes after the bombs have already fallen. Which is everything they do is incompetent and embarrassing, but this is probably the most incompetent and embarrassing they've done so far. All of it, especially the fact they've just stranded so many Americans there with no plan to get them back. At least Grandpa Trump is so dementia-riddled now that he actually will just tell the truth quite a lot. Maybe if it's about even a bad idea. Asked by reporters Tuesday why there was no evacuation plan, Trump replied, well, because it happened all very quickly, which is just the most asinine or just open way of being like, because we're incompetent. What do you mean? Well, we didn't think about that. We didn't have time. We didn't do this properly. Of course, Trump would never ever admit to being Bibi's bottom bitch, Bibi's big, beautiful bottom bitch. He said he was equally dismissive of the suggestion that Netanyahu drove the decision. We were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. If anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. He said, if anything, I might have been the daddy. He said, narcissist claims, shock news at 12. So yeah, it's a truth that it's unlikely our compulsive liar-in-chief will acknowledge, though.
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did that involve the United States is in this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack if we didn't do it.
Oh, it was your opinion? Oh, it was your opinion. Well, thank goodness. Thank goodness for such great, brilliant military strategic plans we're following. Trump's like, I've got a gut feeling they're going to attack first.
I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully.
Jared Kushner. He means Jared Kushner.
All their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So, if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand.
Of course, nobody understands war like Donald jail-baiting Trump. Man's technical genius and organizational savvy cannot possibly be comprehended by any single person. Check out him talking about Putin's totally not war in Ukraine.
I said, this is genius. Putin declares a big portion of Ukraine. Putin declares it as independent. Oh, that's wonderful. So Putin is now saying it's independent, a large section of Ukraine. I said, how smart is that? And he's going to go in and be a peacekeeper. That's the strongest peace force. We could use that on our southern border. That's the strongest peace force I've ever seen. There were more army tanks than I've ever seen. They're going to keep peace all right.
Yes, Trump thinks lying like a gaslighting bully is genius. Shock news. Trump has learned from the best and brightest. Things aren't what they are. They're what you say they are. And as such, Trump has brought Iran a totally selfless and innocent specialist mission of extremely effusive peacekeeping. And his plans for what to do now are so goddamn genius that nobody can possibly know what they are. And it was all his idea, unless it turns out badly, in which case it was Joe Biden what did it. And in the past 70 years of US interference in the Middle East, when has it ever turned out badly? I'm British Chris, and this is Raw America.